grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brandon T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brandon Taz said, is your ex drinking buddy? Brandon Taz said, is your ex drinking buddy? Brandon Taz said, is your ex drinking buddy? Brandon Taz said, is your ex drinking buddy?
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the show, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do, hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, talk shop, and reminisce about crazy old stories. I am sober now, but that is still one of my favorite things to do. Most weeks I will be joined by guests. This week is no exception. Coming in from New York City, all the way from Tampa, my good friend, comedian, podcaster Jared Waters.
Thank you for having me. Shout out to all your followers back at home.
Yeah. What's up, Florida?
Florida's here, man. Florida and New York City.
Florida Boys podcast.
Trust
today.
me, man. When I was here, there's none of us, and now there's like tons of Florida comics here. I'm happy, man. It feels good to have like a sense of home inside New York, man.
Absolutely. Plug everything up front. Let everybody know about your podcast, your shows, everything. This will come out in about 10 days.
All right. I got a podcast called One Man, One Tree, and a Hill. It's a podcast about being alone for your own thoughts, and we're not doing that. We review One Tree Hill episodes. And we do a free weekly show every Wednesday in Astoria Park at 7 p.m. It's one of the longest park shows running in New York City. It's called Training Day Comedy. And then on Thursdays, we have a show called Comedy Night Live. That's in Casa de Meza Bar. And first and third Sundays, a show called Sunday Service at 12 a.m. at the Pear. And then every first Monday of the month, we have a show called Misguided Mondays with my friend Peter Garachi at the shop.
You got a lot going on.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying to have. I remember when I came to New York, I remember not having spots, so I always want a place where I can always have a spot. If anything else happens, then you can catch me at the Stand every weekend. Broadway Comedy Club, Greenwich Comedy Club, whatever club you can think of. I'm probably there at Eastfield Comedy Club. So, yeah, just check my Instagram, Mr. Waters. I definitely put out all my shows that happen throughout the week.
We're going to link everything in the show notes, too. So make sure you check that out.
Yeah. If you see a black dude on a horse, that's me.
That is you. You are on a horse.
That's how to stand out, yeah.
I wanted to talk to you, since you're new to the show. You sent me the list of stories, which I really appreciate. We're going to talk about that. But I wanted the audience to get to know Jared Waters. How did you, because you've been in New York for a little while now.
Been there 5 years.
Yeah, and a lot of, like, I got here and everyone's like, oh, you know Jared, right? And I was like, nah. And they were like, yeah, he's from Florida too. And it's like, it's a big state. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
But I want to tell everybody kind of how you got into doing stand-up in the first place. Like, when did you start?
I started when I was 17, but I don't count those college years because I was definitely lost. You know?
Yeah.
College humor is completely different than adult humor. But I started when I was like young, 16, turning 17. I remember my dad came home with these Sanford and Son DVDs when we were like 10 or 11, and we would just watch them. All these Sanford, and we just laugh all the time. That was like our time to bond.
Yeah.
So this is when like Napster was big. So I like almost wrecked our computer by just downloading all the I was like, oh, his name is Red Fox. So I downloaded all his albums, and I was listening to his albums, and I was telling his jokes at school. And then after that, like, remember Napster used to suggest things? Then I was like, oh, Richard Pryor. So I downloaded all his stuff.
So you got it.
Then I downloaded like all of Def Jam. I downloaded everything. So like I was that kid at school just like throwing out jokes, and it was like, this guy's hilarious. But I was like using other comics. I was just telling stories that I heard before. Have you ever heard this joke before? So like I downloaded all that stuff, and then I was like, oh well, how do you? I remember it was like back in the day on VH1, they would just show random SNL stuff, and I remember they did like the best of Eddie Murphy. I was like, oh, freak, Eddie Murphy's a comedian. Then I like downloaded his stuff, so I would just watch it all the time, and then I remember just always wanted to do stand-up, but like couldn't. And then we moved. My dad was in the military, so we moved a lot. Like every 3 years, we bounced around. And I remember us going to, like, when you move around a lot, like, you got to be fast. And I realized being funny is the icebreaker to wherever new town you're from.
Absolutely.
Because if you're funny, no one's going to bother you and everything else. You either fight them or make them laugh.
Yep.
And then
same premise when I would go to jail. But
So then when I got to college, I just started doing. I was hosting like step shows and hosting everything else, and I met this guy named Whitey, and he had like a comedy group on campus, and then we just all started.
Where did you go to college?
East Carolina University.
Okay, so you're a pirate.
Yeah, home of Chris Johnson, Sandra Bullock, Vince McMahon,
Tony
Linda
Romo.
McMahon. Tony Romo went to East Carolina?
Yeah.
No, really?
I'm almost positive.
No, he couldn't win to East Carolina. They would have put that inside there. What they say is like Sandra Bullock, Nia Long, and Vince McMahon met Linda McMahon at East Carolina.
Really?
That's where they met.
There you go.
So they'll come and do shows and stuff like that, house shows.
So when you went to East Carolina, like you said, you started hosting stuff, and that was kind of your path into doing comedy?
Like I always wanted to do stand-up, but there was no clubs in like Greenville, North Carolina. So there's nowhere to like get up. So like the open mics, you had to like be inside a group to host open mic. So like I did like I would like go find people like, oh, you guys doing like a music open mic? And I'll come and like do the jokes around my head or like roast the people on campus. So I was doing that, and then I found like a group of comics. Like we all do comedy, we do sketches, we do everything else, we do shows. And I was like, all right. So I like joined the group, and that's how it like pretty much started.
Okay. And so when did you go to Tampa? Like when did that?
As soon as I finished college, so like we went back. So like when my parents were in Tampa, I'll go back home to Tampa, then do open mics and stuff like that.
Because Tampa has a very good scene.
Very good scene.
In Florida, I'd say it's Orlando, Tampa, then Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Well, probably Miami's in there too, South Florida.
Yeah, Miami, they got a good scene. So when I finished college, that's when it was like, all right, it's stand-up time. So I went there, I moved to Orlando, I moved to Tampa, moved to Orlando. We do the Florida's Funniest Things. But I realized like I wasn't there because I was in college, so I didn't meet a lot of comics until like I moved back for officially. Okay. So when I moved back officially, that's when I met like Rio, Cam, like all the guys I came up with.
Yeah.
So I was working at Disney World for a while, so I was working there, and then I met, that's where I met Ken, Preacher, and Justin, and Akeem, and then when I lived in Orlando, and I remember there's a place called like Taste Comedy Club.
Okay.
Not a comedy club, it was like an open mic called Taste, and I remember like going there, but like when you work at Disney, you work at nights, and that's when comedy was.
Yeah.
So then when I got back to Tampa, that's when I was like balls to the wall, head down, finally got into a club, and then started hitting all the mics there.
Okay, and then when did you move to, you said 5 years ago, so you moved to New York in 2017?
It was almost 16. I came when Trump was elected. That's
okay.
when I came.
16.
I remember when everybody was like scared. I remember when I was getting there because I was telling people, like, oh, he's going to win. And they're like, what the freaking, are you a Trump supporter? I was like, I'm from Florida, but I knew, like, I drove up here and I drove past Georgia. I drove past North Carolina. I drove past all these states.
I drove past, he's going to win.
I was like, in Pennsylvania, I was like, he's going to win everything. And they're like, are you kidding me? And I remember I was here in Times Square when people were counting down, and then Hillary started losing all these, she started losing all the states, and I saw people crying. People were breaking down, crying on the train, and I remember they had all this massive food because they were ready for a party. So when she succeeded and said she lost, it was just all this food, and all these homeless people came and started taking food. Like, Donald Trump gave us all this food. Oh my God! And like, Trump just gave us all this food. Isn't this crazy? What a great president! And they were just taking all this food around, and I was like, man, I remember. Like the scene just changed because I feel like when you're in like Florida's not a red state, it's like a purple state. We're like a mixture of everything. Yeah. So it's just like we have that ability to have conversation with people to the right, people to the left, people into the middle. And I remember like some people were having a hard time doing these red states because I was just like, I think the red states are the best places to do comedy because they pay for money. They show out, they want to have a good time, they let you make fun of them. Everything else, you just can't make them feel stupid.
Yeah, it's a great point. That's the same thing I've noticed is with a lot of times people are like, the more people think that the red is the more sensitive because they're more conservative and they're more religious, and it's like, no, it's a lot of the liberals that like the super far left leaning liberals that'll snap. I've said this before, I think, on the show, but I did a show in Brooklyn. This is why I don't do a lot of shows in Brooklyn anymore. When I first got here, I went to an open mic in Brooklyn, and I did a story that I tell a lot. It's one of my go-to stories. It's a very funny story. It's a true story. And when I got off stage, a woman came up to me, like a very young, very attractive white woman came up, and she goes, you can't tell that story. And first of all, to say to a comic, you can't, is already a big, like, excuse me?
Facts.
So she goes, you can't tell that story. And I said, excuse me? She goes, you're perpetuating stereotypes. And I was like, how do you mean? She goes, because the gentleman in your story is a black man. And I said, well, I never say that. She goes, yeah, but his name is Tyrone and you do all this, so you're perpetuating. Why can't it be a white guy named Bill? And I go, because this is my friend, and we're still friends, and that's what happened.
There's a story.
And she goes, yeah, but you just can't tell that story. Not in this climate, you can't tell that. And I was like, I'm never coming back to Brooklyn ever again.
No, you got to go back to Brooklyn. You got to go back to Brooklyn. But I had that same, like when I came to, like when we would go to Brooklyn, there used to be a crazy Brooklyn open mic called, it used to be at, it's at a bar off Morgan Avenue. I forgot the name of the bar. But I remember that it used to be like brutal. 2 minutes. And there was like 70 comics there. And then like the first wave, second wave. Then after the second wave, everybody would leave. So like if you're in the third or fourth wave, it's just like, what the freak? And some of it was like the comics policing the comics being censored. I was like, dude, this is not how the world is.
Yeah.
Like you go to freaking Tennessee, anything else, they want you to be raunchy. They want you to be like who you are. That's what makes you stand out as a comic. And I think sometimes it's just like like a lot of people think the South is racist. I was like, the reason why there's a lot of racial stuff in the South because everybody lives amongst each other.
Yep.
So of course there's going to be a problem. This is your neighbor. You got to say something. But in New York, everyone's kind of separated. Jews are over here, blacks are over here, whites are over here. You separate all these people so they're all like, the only time they really cross paths with each other is on the train.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I love that you brought that up because I will say things like playing sports my whole life and just being, like you said, we're neighbors. So I'll say things thinking like, oh, this is a funny joke, and I'll say it. And some of my friends will laugh, and then if I do that up here, I immediately get like, by comics, they'll be like, what? And I'll be like, yeah, that's funny. And they'll, like me and Leo will hang out, and I'll say like the wildest stuff when I'm with Leo, and me and him are laughing, and everyone else is like, and I'm like, we're making jokes, because in my head I don't even think like, I don't even think like, oh, you can't say it, because I came up saying that kind of, like we all came up doing that kind of stuff.
I noticed when I got up here that white men had no confidence, and that's the opposite of down south.
Yeah.
White boys down south are not scared at all. They make jokes, they have fun, but like here, everything's, I'm the victim, I'm this, I'm this. I'm a white male comic, I shouldn't say this, I shouldn't say this. I was like, dude, that is not how the boys I came up with down the
Yeah, right?
I was like, when you listen to their sets, it's like, I was like, they're going balls to the wall and having so it's like that.
Because it's all in good fun, like we're all just making jokes.
But I think like if you played a contact sport, you understand, like when you played a contact sport before, I played football, I wrestled, everything else, like the locker room is wild.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting roasted by your best friend. Nobody's off limits and stuff like that.
Well, and it's real. It's like, this is real life. And it happens in comedy. I see it in the service industry where people will come in and like just be jerks. And then they pay with a credit card. I'm like, your name is on here.
Yeah,
like once I clock out, you think I can't find you? Like it's 2022.
Such a Florida boy.
But like it's like, and I have a whole bit about it. It's obviously funnier. It's not as aggressive, but like, I'm like, this is the real world. So when people get like upset about jokes, I'm like, I've been jumped before in jail. Like who? Like what?
Well, you got to think about it like this. These aren't native New Yorkers. You got to think about like the New Yorkers, like in the Bronx or anything else. Those New Yorkers are completely down for anything.
Yeah.
But it's just like a lot of people from New York are running from wherever state they're from. So that is New York really liberal? Or is it just the people who've moved here that made it liberal? Because as soon as you get outside the city, it's to the right. Long Island, Staten Island, you keep going upstate.
Native New Yorkers you'll talk to, and they're some of the most...
I'm like, they're kind of like in the middle. Yeah, I was like, so what is, like, New York is a cluster of, like, even though it is a melting pot, it's like some of these people are bringing their pots from, like, you're running away from whatever you were at home or anything else, which makes it so great because you're
around a lot of different
You're around
kinds
the
of
different
people.
cultures and everything else, and it's good to adapt and stuff like that. But I noticed that when I got here, I was like, man, some of these people are not native New Yorkers because the shows I've done in like deep in Brooklyn, like we do some East New York, these guys are like, they want you to do the raunchy stuff, they want you to do like that. And they're like, yo, come on, you don't curse at all? I was like, no, I don't curse. Was you okay? I was like, yeah, I just don't curse in mine. All right, cool. Yeah, you were funny, but you didn't curse at all. I just noticed that. But like parts of Harlem, like there's different type of rooms. So I just noticed that it's the people who aren't from here.
Yeah.
And sometimes like when you're visiting a place, you have to come in like with a subservient heart and stuff like that. Like I know I'm not a New Yorker, right? But I've been here for like 5 years, going on 6 years. But I'm here to like still listen, to be like, okay, even though I'm from the South, I'm just like, this is your culture. I hear adapt to it. But a lot of New Yorkers move down south a lot.
Yeah.
And that's where we meet them.
Yeah.
When they get in trouble, they have to come and stay at their grandma's house for like the summer, and they're like working outside and picking up cornfields and stuff like that. I was like, that's why I met this dude from Brooklyn named Gerard. I was like, where are you from? I was like, my mom sent me down here because I got in trouble in Brooklyn. And he was like the hottest he's ever been. He's sweating. I was like, take all these freaking chains off, man. It's hot out here. He's never played football before. We had him like playing football. And he's like, what are y'all doing? I was like, yeah, take them Timberlands off, man.
Yeah, it's
like,
also
it's hot out here.
That's another bizarre thing that it has like playing Division I football in Florida is like a chip. Like you can use that chip.
Yeah.
Up here, everyone's just like football.
Yeah.
Like we like baseball
Well, I mean, it's just that
basketball, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I like sports, but like it's football. Football is what we play.
I remember. I mean, I think this is the best analogy I can say about New York comedy, especially for like people down south coming here with no credits and everything else. There's redshirt freshmen on the football team. Those are the ones that are highly recruited, right?
Yeah.
You got the JUCO players who already got game fame. You got the people without credits like us, walk-ons.
Yeah.
When you walk onto a team, everything you get is going to be earned. Everything you get is because they don't know what high school you went to. They don't know anything else. So you're like a shock to them. So everything you get is not going to be easy. They're not going to get you. Going to go to the open. They're going to put you back to the bottom of the list again. I remember when I walked on at East Carolina for like half of like the spring with a spring ball. They cut me in the fall and the spring ball. He finally goes, just come. And I remember it was 300 of us. And by the end of the day, it was 50.
Yeah.
50.
I saw it in high school all the time in Florida.
Boom, boom. Within like boom, boom. You're done. You're done. You're done. You're done.
We would have, in high school, we would never cut anybody. But I remember we had an awesome season my junior year because we had like 30 returning seniors. So like my junior year, we made it the furthest the school's ever gone. Shout out Spruce Creek. The furthest they've ever gone in the playoffs. Like played Mainland, who ended up going to the state championship that year. Like lost to them in the third round. The next year, we had 180 or 200 kids all come out for the start of the football season for camp. By the time camp was over, we were down to like 80 kids.
That was 2 days. And
yeah, man.
2 days, people throwing up and stuff like that.
And it's the same thing in comedy. That's why I have a hard time asking to be on shows because I think of it like sports a lot, where I'm like, well, I'm good. Like you see me at Mike's and I do pretty well. So like you ask me, but that's not how it works. And
Those mouths don't get fed. I think the hardest thing is like swallowing that what you've established and just realizing that once you realize like you gotta swallow your ego a little bit and realize like the hardest thing is for us, especially people growing up working classes, to ask, but that's what everybody else does.
Yeah. And
everybody just asks.
The fact that I got on the show at the stand last night was because I finally was just like, listen, you need to just swallow your pride and ask. So I just reached out, and then Derek was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's
next month. You're on it. And I was like, what?
Dude, it's the hardest thing of just like growing up, you know, Southern parents, they're just like, nah, work hard, everything else, just close
Everything
your mouth.
else will fall into place.
Everything will fall into place until you realize a lot of things is just asking. A lot of people like, oh, I didn't think you want to do my show. You never, like, didn't. Or I would just do like, get up to a show early. You get to a show early, someone's going to be late.
Yep.
Take the spot.
Yeah.
Someone drops, they see you a couple times, like, all right, here it is, let's do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, closed mouths don't get fed, man.
My favorite thing was I got put on a show kind of like last minute, and I went and I did well. And as I came off, they were like, "Man, that was really good." And I was like, "This was like a couple months ago." And I was like, "Yeah, thanks, man." They go, "No, that was like really." And I was like, "Yeah, would you think I moved up here because like I was like, oh, I'm like a year into comedy. I think I can do it. Like I've been doing this a while, man."
That's what I say. Like the boys, like I said, most of the Midwest boys, them Southern boys, are like when you come up here and when you leave your family. Like I left a house, you know what I mean? Like and I had to tell some of my boys this. I was like, I have no distractions in New York, none,
nothing.
I was like, yeah, even my wife knows it's turbo time. My wife knows, like, all right, let's go to the show, everything else. So sometimes, like when you're from here and you got things distracting, like, I can't make it because my mom's birthday is okay, cool. I can't. I was like, why? Nothing to distract me.
Yep.
It's full. So like the pandemic was the best thing that ever happened to me.
So many people left.
And I was here.
Yeah.
And I was here. And it's just like, dog, I can't tell you that like many times I was being frustrated in New York until I realized like when I got here, I was like, nobody knows you.
Yeah.
Like in New York and like in Florida and like the South, like they don't teach us the business of it. We just are learning to be funny.
Yep.
In New York, it's like the networking is such a big thing. Like I need to be at this show because this is a great hang. So people can know, oh, I'm hanging, but I'm somebody.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that in Florida. I'm just like, we're just trying to beat it's like a blood sport. We're like, oh, we got to be funnier. We got to be funnier than the Orlando guys. We got to be funnier than the Jacksonville guys.
Yep.
We got to be the best in Florida. Oh, Florida's funny is coming. Like it's got to be a Tampa dude. Two Tampa dudes have won. Till you realize like that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Like you said, I don't know. I think you said it before we started recording, but you're like, everybody's funny. Like that's not.
Everybody's funny.
That's not what we're.
Everybody's funny. It's like who's the one that's working or who's doing those little things that makes them stand out. You know.
And this is.
Are you nice? Are you a fun hang? Are you a nice person? Do I want this person on my show?
That's the biggest thing. Is that's a conversation I've had with a lot of people on this show, because it's mainly comedians. I've had actors and musicians and stuff on, but comics obviously are just so easy to get to for me. And also, it's like, hey, do you want to talk about yourself for an hour? And they're like, yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
But this is a conversation, a disagreement I've had with several people I've had on the show where it's the hang versus the mic scene versus the show scene. Like, so it's because my big thing is I've been doing comedy on and off for over a decade. So I've got my tight 5, I've got my 12. Like last night was weird because it was the first time doing like one of the biggest clubs in the world, so I got in my head a little bit. But like bar shows and stuff, I've done bar shows with TVs on and the game on in the back. Like it's fine. So I always tell people like, well, I go to open mics if I have material I want to work on or new stuff that I'm working out. Like then I'll go to mics. Like, I'll hit 3-4 mics a day. But if I don't have anything new that I'm working out, which is an oxymoron because we always have something we're working on. But like if I don't have anything new, I'll just not go to the mics and I'll go to the hang. Like if there's a big show. And I've had people say, no, it's about hitting 10, 15 open mics a day, at least 30 a week. Like you have to put in the work. And it's like, well, I've already put in all that work. Like the work you're talking about, I've already done.
Well, the thing is like if you worked at a Walmart and you worked at a Walmart, accumulate all these hours, and then you change Walmarts and nobody knows you, they're going to be all like, all right, why are we making this dude the manager?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's like for me, I feel like there's no right way to tell. There's no path to make it.
Yeah, there isn't.
There's no clear path, so it could work for anywhere else. But I would say this. I'll give you 2 examples. I know a comic who used to hang all the time. I never seen him go up. Never seen him go
Really?
up. But he would hang at every place, right? And then he opens up for this big comic, and we're in Long Island, and he's bombing for 25 minutes until the owner walks up, and he's just like, hey, who is this guy? and then the headliner goes, oh, I seen him hanging around. I thought he'd do it. And he goes, Jared, get up and do 15. Do about 20. Like, this guy doesn't really. And then I asked him, I was like, dude, have you ever featured before? He goes, no. And I was like, what? You never featured? He's like, nah, we just smoke weed together. And I just asked him, can I open up for him? He goes, yeah.
What?
And I was like, so it's like the hang can get you something.
Yeah.
But I think that no one's going to tell you when to stop doing open mics. Right, when I got to New York, that's what I like. I watched this thing called One Mic, and it was this girl named Suba Agarwal, like Suba, and she says she got up 15 times a week. 15 times. She's doing like 10. I was like, frick, she's doing that many shows? So when I got to New York, I was like, how do you do 8 spots a night? How is that possible? So I realized you got to be somebody to do that.
Yeah.
So I was beating the mics the first year, beating the piss out of the mics, but I realized as I beat the piss out of the mics, I would hang out at the Knitting Factory on Sundays. Like, all right, this is the place where we all hang. We'll do this on Sundays. And then I realized, all right, the open mics got me better to being sharper fast. Mm-hmm. You got 2 minutes to make people laugh, and I'm just me analyzing the open mic. I was like, oh, everybody's friends here. I got to be friends with these dudes, or like try to have something in them for them to actually stay and listen to me.
Yeah.
Everyone's listening because this guy is
they're buddies.
This guy just did a TV show, everything else. Okay, so good. Then I realized like everybody at the open mic that I did open mics with, even though it was crappy, they started running shows.
Yep.
And as they run shows, they're looking for the people who did mics with them. So I think when you get to New York City, like, even though there's people in my class at comedy, they might have not my experience, but they've been in New York City the same time as I've been in. Mm-hmm. So we're in that set class because we all did the mics together.
Yeah.
So as you do the mics, it's a balance of the force.
Well,
I can't do open mics because I'm too busy now.
You got too much going on.
But I remember when I did open mics because I couldn't get any spots.
Yeah. It's actually come full circle for me. When I first moved here, like we were talking about with the Bringers earlier, when I first moved here, I was like, I have too much invested in this. I have too much pride, too much ego. Like, I'm not doing Bringers. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'll do open mics only if I'm working on new material. But now it's actually come full circle in the first year that I've been here because I wasn't getting spots when I first got up here. I was only doing mics. And it was kind of like beating me down because I was like, I know some of this material works. I've done it in big shows and it's dying on at the mic. But it's actually come full circle because now the mics have almost turned into hangs for me because I have been going more and more and I am becoming friends with a lot of those people. So now when I show up, it's almost like a hang. And then like you said, they run shows and now the next thing you know, it's like, hey, do you want to do the show? Come out. And it actually, when I first got here, I was so hell-bent on like, this is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And now after being here for a year, it's like, oh, I ended up kind of falling in to exactly what everyone else does or was saying to do.
Strip yourself of everything. The hardest part is just taking off these ranks that we developed in Florida, that we've earned our stripes and realizing like these stripes don't matter here.
Not up here.
This stripe is about like, I've opened up for like several big comics and then I was like, when I got to New York, I realized like, oh, they can't do nothing for me here.
Yeah.
They can't do anything. It's like, oh, I'm at the South. What? I can't. What am I going to go to open mic? I was like, hey, you know where the places do open mics? No.
Yeah.
No. No.
So
I think
funny.
I asked Jim Norton that one time, and he looked at me and goes, I don't know how to start comedy in New York City. He goes, I don't know. He's like, I don't know how to start. I can't. He's like, I'm going to be honest. I don't know how to start comedy in New York City. I'm too far away.
Too far gone.
That was the most honest thing. I remember Bobby Kelly told me one time, you move to Queens, get an apartment for $300, just get a piece of bread and everything else. And I was like, this is not how... This advice is like outdated or to the 80s or stuff. But I feel like once you just take it in your mind and realize like even though what I've accomplished, instead of talking about it on the show, it'll show. Like when you get on the show, it'll see your experience, it'll do everything else. But so much of it is just, you want to be around people who work hard, the people they see rising up, the people do everything else. And I tell people before you come to New York, like, try to get a credit, try to do festivals and stuff like that. And once you do festival, that's a credit. That's like, you've seen them here, you've seen them there. But the open mics is important because that's where you're going to meet everybody coming up.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I used to think, being frustrated my first year, thinking like, oh man, why don't these guys not put me on with everything else? Like, they only put their, I was like, oh, they all started with the mics together. They
only put their friends on.
They all came up
friends.
with each other. Yep. So of course you trust the people that you've been doing comedy for 4 years with, because you know this person's not going to drop the ball on the show, or this person, or they all start getting credits together. They all start getting managers together. And I was like, okay, this is their class.
Yeah.
So it's not that they're shunning me. It's just like, we didn't come up with you. We don't know who are your references? I was like, I can't reference. I was like, call up the owner from Sides.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he could be my
Next time you're in Tampa, ask.
But just me, just like observing. That's me just observing the scene. I had to take, like my dad's military, but I just observe the situation, see what's going on.
Yeah.
I was okay. I'm going to the show. I'm looking around. Okay, these people get the shows. All right, well, I'm gonna go to a show where I see this person a lot, so I could like, okay, hey, how are you? My name is Jared. Oh, good to meet you, Jared. Good. I see you're at this spot too. Good. When they start seeing you more and more, and during the pandemic, I remember a comic. I'm not gonna say his name. He's just like, I just thought you were hanging.
Wow.
And there wasn't no disrespect. It's just like, these are really big shows. I didn't have any type of credit at the time. Of course, that's why I'm hanging.
Yeah.
But when the pandemic happened, when everything was stripped to ground zero, it was just like walking on. It's just like two-a-days. You got the pads, one person sitting there. You're sitting there. You get up. You're colliding. Yeah. And I was like, oh, perfect. This is my world. Welcome to the swamp, because I'm here.
This is what we do.
This turned exactly to a swamp. And I was praying. I was like, yo, my prayer was like, when I got to New York City, I was like, I remember like my dad, he took it serious, but when he saw, like, I was like, in 3 years, I'm moving to New York. He goes, all right. And then, like, when it started getting to, like, July, when you moving? August. I start packing up my stuff, and he's like, oh, you're leaving? I was like, yeah, I'm out. And then after he's like, you got a job? I was like, no, I'll figure it out when I get there. And as I drive up, I get there, I get my apartment, everything else. Within 2 weeks, I find my job, until I realized, like, yo, God, just leave me like a baby, man. I just needed to be clear as day that I'm supposed to be here. And then as soon as everything happens, and I was like, I start getting like more shows after that. I was hanging out at the right place. I got thrown up at like industry shows. I was like opening up. I was like, freak, it's happening. It's happening. Pandemic happens. And I was like, all right. So we're like resting for 6 months. Then I start seeing like my friend, his name is Khalil Walker, did this show called Horseplay. And then he's just like, dude, I don't know any comics still doing. I see you doing Zoom shows, everything else. And he goes, somebody dropped out. I said, put me up.
Let's go.
And next year, you know, it was like, bam, 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 bam. I was like, F no, I'm not. And a lot of comics forgot, like, people have been inside for 7 months, 10 months. You think they want to hear about your depression? No. Give them the jokes that work.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic, it's just like, boom. Then I did a show. Someone else like, hey, I got a park show. Boom. And then I was like, all right, we got to start our park show. So me and my buddy Matthew, he wanted to start a park show. He wasn't getting up a lot. And I was like, dude, just start your own park show. These parks are free. Start your own show. Instead of getting on everybody else's show, like the Take It Outside guys, and just, it was like maybe 20 shows, and I was on every 20. To the point, like, even if you weren't in the scene, you'll see this name, Jared Waters, Jared Waters, Jared Waters, Jared Waters, Jared Waters. Then it was just like, all the SNL people were there looking for spots. I was like, freak, what? And I was saying, like, oh, Chris Redd is on the show. Freak, put me up. He's like, all right, I need someone to do a guest spot. I was like, yeah.
That's awesome.
Then it was to the point now, it was just like, man, I was like one of the ones in the pandemic. And I would call all my buddies, like all the Southerners. Like, when I came, it was nothing but Chicago comics, everything else. So when I went down to North Carolina for a festival, I told like everybody, like, you guys need to move now. Just, we need to have strength in numbers. If there's more Southern people, we all can split shows with each other. We all can run things together. I told the Florida boys to come. And
I got the memo. I was supposed to be up here.
They all went to California. Like,
I was supposed to be up here April 1st, 2020. And then 2 weeks before we signed our lease, March like 20th, we got a call. And they were like, yeah, your transfers are off for work. And we're like, what do you mean? They go, there's a pandemic happening. Didn't you see? And I was like, no. But I mean, it was a blessing because Florida I was only out of work for 6 weeks. Everyone up here was out of work for 18 months.
Yeah, and it made you realize like how much people are making in comedy. I was like, man, this is the most they've ever got is only from unemployment. I was like, man. So then I started analyzing people's, like, not just like just being obvious of like, okay, this is what the club pays, this is what everything else. And I just noticed like, okay, if this is what's happening in comedy, everybody wants to get up. So since everybody's getting up, there's only 40 comics in the scene. Yeah. So I counted them all. I counted all the shows and I started making a list of every show. So like when I got to New York, I didn't have a list of anything. And I was like, all right, what I'm going to do is I call it the map of the swamp. every single day. I go online like once a week. Every Sunday I go on and I look at who has a show, who has a monthly, who has a weekly, and I edit it. So when people come to town, take it. This is a list of the shows in New York City.
Oh, wow.
I say I can't take you to the water, but I can show you where it is. I can show you. You can't drink. I can't get to drink it for you because I'm trying to get spots for myself. But look, this is how you hit up people. This is send a message, everything else. And it's just me realizing like I want to offer something to the scene so the scene can offer it back to me.
Yeah.
Because I realized like I'm just taking spots. It's like, oh, I need to have a show. I need to have something where people come into town. Like here.
Yeah.
Here's a show.
You can only get back what you give out.
Yeah. So I wanted to just give out nothing but love. And it's to the point like after the pandemic, my name started circling and then freaking I opened up for Michael Chait in the pandemic. So that was amazing.
Awesome.
After that, like, people's like, oh, this is Turbo. This is it.
Yeah.
So I finally was like, all right, freak. Yes, freak. Yeah, it took a freaking a while. But I realized that the reason why I had to take a while because this pandemic was good, it showed me how to hit faster. Like in Florida, we have this, not a lazy pace, but we know when jerks work, we're throwing haymakers.
Yeah.
But in New York, it's just...
That's the thing. And we talked about this before where it's like in Florida, we're given something that not a lot of comedians, especially up here, are given. And that's the benefit of time.
Yeah.
Where you can go up, especially once you're more established in the Southeast, you could just be like, hey, I'm going to go up and do 20. And people are like, all right, have fun.
Yeah, let's do it.
And up here, it's like I was on the show last night and it was a book spot that we had like talked about. I had been on the show, but then there's a couple of drop-ins. Now all of a sudden you go from 12 minutes to 6 minutes and it's like, yeah, make it happen. And it's like, oh, I thought like because I was on the flyer, I was going to do 15 to 20. And it's like, that's not how it works up here.
You get spot bumped. I think one time is just like anything after like 12:45, just be prepared.
Yeah.
You're going to get heckled. There's drunks inside there. And I was like, all right, this is about to be a Florida show. This is about to be a wild bar show. So try to reel them in. So I think it's just be acceptive of everything, receive everything, and realize it's not a slight towards you. It's just like this scene has been going on longer than we've been in.
Yeah.
So you just had to find a way to maneuver through the swamp. And the best thing is in the pandemic, it was just like every club was closed, so everybody was on the same playing field. There was clubs open, but it's just like a comic like Sheba Mason, how she reinvented herself. She started a freaking Three Monkeys bar. It's 7 nights a week now.
Yeah.
So you can get up at her spot 7 nights a week. My dude Eric Branstein, he had it's just all these comics have a chance to like reinvent themselves. And then freaking Jared Schwartz started Mama's Boy, and then Mama's Boy started popping. It was like the hottest show in the pandemic. Then like all these park shows started popping up. So it's like a good time to just always like reflect and realize, okay, what am I bringing to the scene? What is something different? And like I was like being in the military, like bouncing. My dad was in the military, but every time we met people, I was asking like, where are you from? Because nobody's from. No, we all live in Tokyo.
Yeah.
We all don't. We're not from here.
Yeah.
I'm from Georgia. I'm from that. So I always remember where comics from. So I could be like, okay, you guys, y'all know each other. And every time comics will be around each other and might not even know each other, but just sitting amongst each other. I was like, hey, do you know him? No.
Well, you've done that with me a couple of times where you're like, wait, you're from Florida? He's from Florida? Do you guys know each other? Yeah.
Dude, when I got to New York, I didn't know anybody. And I would be standing in there in front of like all these people. No one would introduce me. So I would just be like the awkward guy just standing there just like, hey, what's up?
That's why I love doing the podcast because it's something tangible. So if like someone has a show that they run or whatever, I'm like, come on the show. Like, let's promote the shit out of it. Let's do it. I wanted to ask you, because you did say you moved around a lot.
Yeah.
I wanted to you did send me this list of stories. You have 2 of your stories that you sent me are in other countries.
International stories, yeah. We so when my dad got orders to Tokyo, we all left. We didn't know what it was. I remember my grandma was like, y'all going to Japan? Instead it's in Japan. And I think the story I sent you was
The girlfriend one.
I broke into my girlfriend's house. Her dad was my ex-girlfriend's house. Her dad was he was a military dude. I think
Okay, so this wasn't a native.
These are this is hard. It was on a base too. Like this is on a base. This is on an Air Force base. So like it was a time like one time she snuck me in, but it's like this is a Puerto Rican girl, so they be lying to their parents. So they be lying to their parents.
How old are you at the time when this is happening?
I'm like 14. I'm like 14, turning 15. And I remember she told me to come over, and I was like, all right, come over. And then I was like, it was like 11 o'clock at night, so I'm definitely gonna get a spanking because I'm leaving my house, whatever. I catch the bus, and when I get there, we're just watching a movie alone, and then her mom comes downstairs. I'm like, oh freak, I got like palmed up and holding her, and her mom was like, mira, no, why is he here? He's not supposed to be here. And she's like, Mom, it's okay, go back to bed. And I was like, did you just send your mom back to? The freak, man. We're from the South. I was like, did you just send your mother back? This is wild. So the next time she goes, come over. And I was like, and we didn't have phones. This is like MSN Messenger. So you get the messages alert. Then I got to log out to make sure like that. So like I get there, me and my boy RJ were up there. And I was like, maybe she's sleeping. But she told me to just walk through the door. So I like walk in. I'm like walking in, and it's like breaking an entry. I'm like walking in. I'm like walking through their house. I'm like walking through their house. Then I hear like some noise. I was like, oh, freak, that must be her dad. So I run out the house, and I'm trying like to do it softly, but I forgot my friend is upstairs because he wanted to come in there with me.
Oh gosh.
So he comes out like the window, and I remember her dad like walking up, and me like I took my dad's flight suit, and I'm like in a green flight suit, and I literally laid down on the grass in front of him, and he walks over me.
He didn't see you?
No, he didn't see me. He walks over me and goes, I don't know. He said, I thought I heard something, and then just walks back in the house and locks it.
Wow.
Just freaks and locks it. But it was like that's the wildest stuff that happened. I remember one time I walked in, and my friend was with his girlfriend, and like we were just dancing, right? And her mom walks in, and she goes, why the freak are you in this house? And I was like, and we go to the same church too. And she goes, and she's cheating on her boyfriend with you. And I went like, oh, freaking. He's like inside her room, and he like leaves off the balcony and goes all the way downstairs. And I was like, hey, I said, I understand this looks bad, but please don't tell my dad.
I just got back on the football team. Please don't tell.
Your dad was really strict?
My dad was strict. My dad and mom were super strict, but it was just like they tried to be strict, but it was hard because we lived in a different country.
Yeah.
We lived in a different country, and they trusted everybody. Like we had all of our friends and stuff like that. So all of our, like if I think about like the friends I grew up with in high school, like I hadn't seen them more than anybody. I saw them like 7 days a week.
Yeah.
For like the past 3 years. So we like bonded for real. So like they didn't worry about us like, who are these people? Because they knew who the people were.
You saw them all the time.
So
Did you, growing up in a military family, was there like a lot of, because I've had people on it talk about high school antics, like, sneaking out, going to parties and stuff. Was that a big thing growing up in a military family?
It was wild.
Was it really?
It was freaking wild.
See, I thought you were going to go the other way. I thought you were going to be like, no, I never touched anything. Like,
you got to think about like people who like were in the military, like in America, they probably got those stories. But we're in a completely different country.
Yeah.
Completely different country with completely different rules, right?
Yes.
And it's
tell
just
me
like our
about that.
parents would be gone for like, there's times my dad would be gone for like 7 months for TDY.
Yeah.
And then my mom's gone, and we're just like parties at our house.
So you guys were just, when did you start like doing that? Was that in Japan?
It was, yeah. First it was once my brother started rebel, then I like strung. My brother's he's older than me.
Okay.
But like his type of rebellion was like disrespectful. I remember like my mom goes, we're leaving. You're gonna.
It makes me laugh because you're one of the nicest, most respectful people I know that I've met since I've been up here, and it's so funny to meet him being like, you're just like, he was just disrespectful.
Like I tell people all the time, I was like, I'm calm now. I was like, but I lived a wild life, and
Did you?
and now I'm like more reserved.
Yeah.
But I could part. So like, I remember my parents.
He said, but I could party.
My parents had their friend, a trusted person that they respected. He goes, our neighbor, his name was Mr. Dowdell. They asked him, like, hey, the boys are going to be staying with you. The girls are over there. They are not allowed to come into this house, everything else, and they got to stay with you. And my brother tells him, a grown man, and he goes, we're staying at our house, and we'll come over there to watch you. And he goes, what? He goes, you trust us, everything. My brother's like a schemer. He goes, you trust us, we're just going to stay at our house. We just want to show that we're responsible, everything else. Jared will come over and help watch your kids and everything else. He goes, sure, no problem. And the whole time we were throwing parties, raves, everything else.
Really?
It was and then the point is, the thing is, the base is so small, so the words start getting around like Jared's house is open. So and
The
then
house is open.
so it was just like, so it got to our base and it got to another base. So this other dude, like my boy he's like, hey, you guys open? All right, we're coming to go get the Atsugi girls. That's like an hour away. These girls drove got a train, got a bus, and just 25 girls come out of like cars and just run into the house. And then the guy next door goes, you got to get these girls out. He's like, come on, you guys are being disrespectful to your parents. You're being disrespectful to your parents.
So you guys used to be wild.
It was wild. It was freaking wild. And the thing is, it's just, I say it like we're like mutants because like we all grew up in this life where we understood that, like it was a lot on my mom. Like my dad's gone for like 7 months and you're watching all these kids, teenagers growing up. So we always just get in trouble all the time. And it's just like, there's only so many spankings you can get.
Yeah.
And my dad was raising millennials. Like he grew up poor, but we didn't.
Yeah.
So in his mind, like he's like trying to show us values. I'm like, we don't know what it's like to be. Yeah, like
we're good, Dad. There's always food in the pantry.
He's like middle class. So he's like, we're like upper middle class. He's an officer, so he's like lieutenant colonel. Like I seen him. I seen him raise up. Like I remember, I didn't understand how powerful my dad was until I was like working, doing like a teen job, and like this guy goes, "That's your dad?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Stand still." I was like, "Stand still," and he walks, and everybody's like this. I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "My dad has this type of power." I was like, what? I just thought he just beating me. I just thought he was just spanking me for everything else. I thought he was just. I was like, he's spanking me out of frustration. He was in charge of like 150 people. Of course, he was like that. So like he raised us more like soldiers a little bit, like strict and everything else. And like as I got older, I realized he was teaching me how to live in the South, but we weren't in the South.
So how long were you in Japan?
Like 4 years. We were there for 4 years.
So you were there from 14 to 18?
I was there in 2001. I was there when I was like 11.
Okay.
11, and then after that we went to the Netherlands. So I was there from like my 8th grade year to my sophomore year, and then from my sophomore year I went to the Netherlands till like freshman or sophomore year. Then I went back to Florida.
Okay. So because you're bouncing around a lot, I just want to, I think I understand this, but when you're on the base, you're going to like school on the base, so you're around a lot of other military kids.
We would go to other bases to play football and play basketball. So it's just like Yokota was known for having Army, everybody. So like everyone came to our base. So these were like, we had like D1 players and stuff like that. So football was like people like came from Texas and stuff like that. So like football was very intense and stuff like that. So like we would all leave in our schedule. We play other bases around Japan. So all these other military bases, we would play Japanese pro teams and stuff like that.
Get out of here.
No, yeah. We played Japanese pro teams. And
Did you beat them up?
One time they beat the F out of us. These
really?
Were like yeah. They were like blindsiding us the whole time. One time they beat us like by like 30 something. We're known for like Yokota's known for like as a powerhouse football team.
Yeah.
But we would do all these scrimmages against like Japanese teams, and one time they just spanked us. It was all in the paper. That was the first time we've ever lost in like 2 years. And this Japanese team, they're just talking trash in Japanese and blindsiding us and stuff like that.
Do you speak Japanese?
I can like every country that we've been through, I've learned like the native, so I can hold conversations and like simple stuff.
What's the Netherlands? They speak Dutch. Look at that.
So the Netherlands was more wild because we were not on a base.
Oh, you weren't?
And
you're older now.
We were with the people. So like the reason why Yokota was so wild is because everyone was our age.
Yeah.
We all knew how to get around each other. Everyone had cars. And we're part like Roppongi is the largest club district in the world. And not saying that Japanese people, they just didn't know they didn't know how old black people were. So we're just taking ID and like pass it around. They didn't know.
Most Americans don't either.
So they're just like, oh, these guys are like 18. They wouldn't even card us. They would just let us in. So we'd like be partying at 14, partying at 13 with all these like running stuff like that. So it was like I lived in like Tokyo for real. Like we're like partying and stuff like that.
Like Tokyo Drift. We've all seen the movie.
And we would just rent TLF buildings. So they were like temporary lodging facilities.
Yeah.
So we would just rent them and just throw parties there. And they would just like be abandoned.
So wait. You'd rent entire buildings.
They would rent. So it's like, when you first move into the military, there's temporary lodging facilities where you live, right?
Yeah.
And there will be a whole bunch of towers. And when they renovate the towers, it will just be abandoned. But people who live there would know the 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 5th floor is abandoned because they're renovating. So this guy goes, hey, the towers are open. Parties at the towers. So everyone will go up there. It would be like our hookup spot. One time I like opened the door. My friend said, hey! I said, oh, I didn't know you were here. My bad. I didn't even know. I didn't even know. So it's just like I say, like the military kids are the worst kids because we're very intellectual, we're very smart, and we know ways to bend the rules.
And you're hyper-focused. You're hyper-aware.
Hyper-focused. Like all my friends, like they could be like, I remember my friend robbed I think he robbed this Japanese store and took like over everything else. Like, how did you do that? And he's like, I did. And he's like that. And then I remember like if any person in Japan like grew around the military people, they don't like Americans. I agree. I can understand. We're wild. We're on the train.
Yeah.
But I remember this dude at our high school, he like took something and the Japanese people they put like this button, they locked him inside there and they beat him with kendo sticks for like 30 minutes. And it was the most hilarious thing. He's like, what? So they let him go after that.
Hey, I watch wrestling. I know those kendo sticks hurt.
They beat him with kendo sticks. So it's just like everybody that got to this base, we're all like mutants because we all understood everyone grew up in the same thing. We all are experiencing our adolescence together.
Yeah.
And our parents are gone.
Yeah.
Our parents are like they're doing TDY, they're doing everything else. So like, all right, so I remember like my parents, someone stole my ID when I first got there. So my parents left to Korea and they literally met this person at church like, hey, can my son stay with you for 5 days? They're like, yeah, let them stay with us.
Wow.
And that's how I met like my best friends. I just lived at their house, and we just, after a while, we started hanging out. We started talking about music.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you guys are from Georgia? I just moved here from this. Oh, I'm from Nebraska. And then we all learned about music and stuff like that. So it was just like the parties. We all played football together, and then we all go to different bases and then go get the girls from the other bases.
See, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't see this coming because, like you said, you're very clean cut. You're very respectful. You're a true Southern gentleman now up here in New York. So I did not see the parties of
Parties are
back
wild.
in the day coming.
It was wild. It was wild. The Netherlands was wild.
That's what I was going to say. So you moved to the Netherlands, and now you're not on a base. You're living at someone's house.
But everything is legal in the Netherlands.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Amsterdam.
When you're 15 and 16, you can do, like, we were at clubs at 16. One time we were at a party, and it's weird. This military guy's partying with high school kids, but he's like maybe 28. He had to be way older than us.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's trying to get rid of his alcohol, so he goes, bring all these high school kids to party with him. So I'm sitting like, this is kind of weird, right? We're going to this. This is me just not noticing. I'm like, this is weird. Like, we're going to this dude's house to just drink. He's like a cop too. He's like a military police. And the next you know, he goes, if you're not of age, everybody get out right now. The cops are coming. And then everybody's like, wait, drinking age 16? We're good. We're good. Like, everybody's good here. So we were just like partying. It was just like everyone knew English there.
Yeah.
So like in Japan, it was like a language, but in Europe, everybody pretty much knew English. So like when I went to prom my junior year, I brought a Dutch girl.
Did you?
Yeah. She was way older than me. I convinced her to go. I think she was like 21 or something like that. I'm 16. I was like, look, this is like the American thing. You should go. I was like, oh, I would love. And everybody's sitting at a prom like,
That's not a lot of convincing. This is the American thing. And she's like, okay.
I was like, prom, they grew up watching American TV shows like the prom. So I'm sitting there.
It's a big deal.
And everybody's talking like, yo, I was like, don't worry, I'll bag that. Don't worry about that. So we're going to foam parties, and I think that was the one. Like we had we threw ice at Montel Jordan because Montel Jordan came to do a concert in the Netherlands, and he wasn't singing "This Is How We Do It." He just kept singing random songs. So everyone started throwing ice at him and stuff like that. They tried to tip over his car, and then we're like,
whoa! They tried to tip over his car.
Yeah, they tried to tip over his car. Like when people come to Europe, they're like They're like either their career is over, or they're like coming here. So he like came. I was like, Montel Jordan, like he hasn't had a song in the '90s, and he won't sing "This Is How We Do It." He wouldn't do. He kept singing new songs. We're like, hey, get to the
reason we're here.
He was singing everything else. So then we left and go to a foam party. And this is when George Bush is in office. So a lot of people weren't too happy that Americans were around because like the war is happening and stuff like that. So we're at a foam party. We're like dancing, and I'm like having my shirt off, and this Dutch guy grabs me by. I'm like standing on a bar. He grabs me by my foot and sweeps me off. And like I fall into the foam. Like you fall into a foam, you can't see anything.
Yeah.
So like I stand back on the bar, start swimming my shirt like a helicopter.
Oh, so you just got back up and?
No, I freaking Juventud Guerrero and flipped off and connected. And connected with him. Juventud Guerrero flipped him off. Then all my friends start jumping. We start having fist fights, brawls, and everything else. And the thing about it's like when you're in a foam party, there's no winning because you're slipping the whole time. So everybody's like slipping all over the floor. And then you're like, I'm freaking out because the foam is over your head. So you're breathing in dishwater. So I'm like, I'm freaking dying. This guy's choking me out. And I'm freaking.
Over my head. I can't see.
You can't breathe. I have him like in this. I have him in like a. I went to a double leg. I'm like choking him out and stuff like that. And then I'm like, I'm biting his neck and everything. I couldn't see, so I'm like biting his neck. We're like fist fighting. Then they just toss us out. They're like tossing us out and stuff like that. And I think it's always heightened because like the guys I went to the Netherlands with, we were just all we party every night, every freaking night. And it's like imagine teenagers just drunk driving home. Like I wasn't like a heavy drinker like that, but my boys were, and I didn't have a license, so they had to drive me. And I'm like one time I was like, man, I'm gonna be sure. I'm pretty sure this guy drank way more than anybody else. And you're like, well, Mike's the only one with a car, so he has to drive it. So he has to drive us home.
Mike's the only one with the car. So
my parents were strict and religious and stuff like that. But I think in the back they knew. I remember one time my mom called me and she goes, "You better be home in an hour." And I was like, "I'm in Belgium." My sister's like, "He's not even in the country." He drove to Brussels for a party, and she's like, "You got an hour to be home." And I'm like, I'm not even in. I'm like nowhere near. I'm like 3 hours away. And I remember I came home at like one time. My mom, she didn't even believe me. The story was too crazy for her to believe me. That I was in a phone party and I got in a fight in a phone party and I lost my phone. It sounded like I made it up. I lost my phone. Then when I got to the house, I climbed on top of the house because I lost my key. Everything at a phone party. And my brother is like looking at me, and he looks and he locks the window and starts laughing, and I can't get in the house. So I go back to the phone party.
Oh my God.
I go back and I was like, well, no one's opened the door, and my friend's mom was like, just stay here. And I was like, all right, we'll leave in the morning. So I got home maybe at like 8 o'clock in the morning. So like when I'm leaving the party, like in the Netherlands, the party ends at like 6 a.m.
Okay.
So like I'm leaving and I get home and my mom's leaving to work and I'm walking in. And she just looks at me, she's like, get out of my face. She's like, get out. And she calls my dad. It's like, he got home at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, listen, y'all not going to believe me when I...
You're not going to believe this, but I'm going to go for it.
But it was like random. It was like, it was always just fights. It was just like... You don't know you're a Republican until you're an American living outside of the country.
Yeah.
Like I was very pro-America because that's the only thing I had.
Yeah,
that
that's
was
you.
So like people are like, where are you? We're from America. Like we're from Florida. Like where are you guys from? I was like, oh, we live in America. It was like a bravado because everyone was just trashing on Americans that time.
So you got to stand up.
So it was just like it was us and the Canadians. And the Canadians, everyone loved them because they're like, they like partying and everything else. But I remember there was times just like random bar fights and stuff like that.
Well, it's the same thing with Florida being in New York now. Everyone talks shit, and it's like back up, man.
Yeah,
like,
and you're just
Florida has given me everything that I've ever gotten in my whole life. Like, you know what I mean, though? Like, the opportunity to like play college football, starting comedy, like that all happened in Florida. So, like, I understand that you're just a victim of your circumstance and your surroundings. So, like, if I grew up in Ohio, I'd say that about Ohio, but I didn't. I grew up in Florida.
Right.
So when people bag on it all the time, I'm like, 90% of below 95 is made up of like people from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Like, you guys all come to us. Like, get the hell out of here.
I'd have been, my grandma was like, no, you're from Florida. Don't say people like that. You can't say the Netherlands or everything else. She's like, because I was like, she's like, where are you from? She's like, you don't got a home. I was like, Florida's where I fell in love. Florida's where, that's my, I love Florida. That was the best place. So every time we get off vacation, we come back to Florida. I remember we were in Tampa. We were downtown Tampa. This guy I met at the dentist.
Ybor City?
Ybor City, and my buddy, I met him at the dentist office, and we just became friends because I had a soccer shirt on. He goes, dude, come to my house, let's party. And I was like,
what? Wait, what?
Yeah, that's some
How
Florida
old were you when this happened?
I was like 19 or 20. I was like, no, I was 22. I just finished college,
this was
21.
after college, yeah.
And he's like, dude, like freaking, she's like, you've been coming, because they had to fix I had a crown that kept getting effed up. So I kept going to this dentist office, and this dude goes, I think you're freaking cool, Spanish. I think you're cool, bro. I love the freaking soccer jersey, man. I have a party in my house.
Who's
Let's
your
do
soccer
it.
team?
It was Barcelona.
Okay.
So we're talking about Messi and stuff like that. So I go to his house, and we're partying. The next thing you know, we just start partying together all the time. And then we just party all the time. And then we're like hanging. He brings this girl with him. And he brings this girl. I don't know if it's not his girlfriend yet. But next thing you know, they start drinking and start partying. Next thing you know it, it's 5 dudes and just 1 girl. And we're just partying together. But she starts making out with his friend. And like, I just met these guys, so I'm not here to say anything. But I'm just like, man, this is wild, like everything else. And next, they get in an argument. She just sprints off into Tampa. She sprints off
Into
by
downtown
herself.
Tampa.
And then he goes, we got to get her. And I was like, it doesn't look. And I was like, dog, this does not look right. 5 dudes chasing after this girl who's literally running away from you.
Get her.
He's like, we got to get her. And then I was like, because we drove her car. I was like, we got her keys. I was like, let's just drive back. And then he looks at me and he goes, well, what the freak? What is she going to do? I was like, listen. I said, look, man, Tampa has her now. Just I was like, Tampa has her now, man. We just got to freaking leave. So that was wild. And the nights in Orlando were wild. And I think a lot of people don't realize how wild Orlando is, because when we worked at Disney World, every 6 months, the beautifulest women from around the world come work at Disney World.
Really?
Yeah, so they do this international program. So I did like a college program, but the international program is like everybody from around the world. And some of them want to stay. And they're just part. So you're part of the most beautifulest people in the world.
When you walk around Disney, they've got the name tags, especially like Epcot and stuff. And that's like, it'll say where people are from.
Facts.
And when you go, it's so interesting. So for those of you who've never been to Epcot, you should definitely go, because every different country you go into, they like bring people in from that country to work there.
Yes.
So they know everything there is to know.
And even inside Magic Kingdom, most of them are all from different countries as well.
Yeah.
And they have just these giant party buses that pull up to your little place where you stay at, and then they just take you to party.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just take you to party. And then just me being observant, I was like, this dude's 45 years old, and he's driving a party bus. He's like, I got alcohol, come on.
Let's go.
And I was like, how long have you been partying? And this girl's like, yeah, he was doing this when I was here 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So you just meet all these people. I think Orlando is the best place for anybody about to like when you're finishing college. It's like a purgatory to find out what you want to do.
Yeah.
So
that's
I'm like,
a great way to put it.
I was like, you can still party at the same time. You can still work on your resume and everything else.
And then sometimes people like the bus driver. They never leave. They just want to party.
So we all, like from the Netherlands, we all go to college and we all split. Like everyone leaves the Netherlands, so we haven't all been around each other in like years. So my friends like, let's go to Daytona Beach for spring break.
386, shout out.
So we go to Daytona Beach and it's just freaking, it's massive. It's wild. We haven't seen each other in a while. We haven't been from the Netherlands and everything else. You know, in Daytona, like we went there when the Daytona 500 happened to be there at the same time.
Okay.
It's spring break and it's some other thing. And it's just like
PCR, maybe?
It's dude, it's freaking wild because.
So was this the people from the Netherlands? Were those the same people from the some of the same people from the base in Japan?
No. So they're completely different. The people in the base of Japan, it's hard. Like
I didn't know if when like your dad gets transferred, if like a lot of people.
So my dad starts working for NATO, right? He starts working for NATO. So everyone in the Netherlands and Germany.
So NATO,
but it's connected.
Yeah.
So it's just like in the Netherlands, there's people from Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands all going to the same school.
Okay.
But it's not a school on base. It's an international school.
Okay.
So everybody is from different parts of the world. There's people from Portugal, everything else. So like we're learning all these languages, and it's just everybody's beautiful there. They're just freaking beautiful. So I was telling the guys like that I met, my best friend is from Ohio, and I was like, dude, why am I talking to American chicks with me? There are plenty of them back at home.
So when you guys go to the Daytona trip, that's everyone from the Netherlands,
everybody
from this international school. Okay.
So my friend breaks up with his girlfriend, breaks up with him. He's sad, and he goes, "We all got to link up, man. Let's go to Daytona Beach." So
and now is everyone living back in the States at this point?
So everyone's in different states.
Okay, but they're all back in the U.S.
Everyone's back in the U.S. Okay. Everybody's in college. We're all in college.
Okay.
So we're all in college and like, let's do the Daytona Beach. And I was like, well, my dad's in Tampa. Let's go. That's not that far away from me. We'll leave during spring break. So I take my car, we go, and then it was just like, we're supposed to get like a hotel, but we had only 2 beds in the hotel, and there's 15 of us in the room.
Oh, get out of
here. 15 of us in the room.
Do you remember what hotel it was?
It's like a baby blue hotel near the beach.
Okay.
I forgot what it was. It's a baby blue hotel by the beach.
Hotels.
But I remember they gave you like a band to get into the hotel.
Yeah.
And it's like the only 5 people can stay inside the room. So my boy from St. Louis, he's from East St. Louis, Romance, he goes, let's go to Michael's. I was like, why are we going to Michael's? He goes to the craft section and literally makes bracelets for like an hour and goes, we all got bracelets now. We all got bracelets now. We all are good. We all are good.
So he just made matching bands for everybody?
So everybody goes inside there. And then I think, so we all get kicked out. We got kicked out of some club in Daytona Beach. We got kicked out of another one.
Razzles.
Razzles, yes. Yeah. Razzles. We got kicked out of.
Razzle-dazzle, baby.
Razzles was probably the best club we went to.
Yeah, that's
every night.
The only club.
We go to Razzles. Razzles was the funnest one.
Yeah.
We got to Razzles. My friend got kicked out because he goes up to the bar and goes, this couple comes and like they go, would you like to drink with us? And he orders nothing but like bottles. He orders tons of bottles and he points back to them and they wave and he puts it on their bill. And I was like, why are you leaving so fast? He was like, we got to go. I was like, what happened? Because after the Netherlands, you know, he got to the Netherlands because he got in trouble. So his mom sent him out there with his sister to like live.
Okay.
But he's still a goon from the Midwest. He's still a goon. So these are all like unique goons from different places and stuff like that. So like we're learning about daddy has gold teeth and everything else. So we get kicked out, and then like we go to Daytona Beach, and then the last time is like I started teaching, so I became a kindergarten teacher, and I was like, look, dog, we're all like 23. I was like, this might be our last hurrah. We're all graduating. We're all doing anything. Let's do one more.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let's go to Panama City.
I was hoping you were going to tell this story.
So we go to Panama City, and we haven't seen each other in like maybe 2 years. Like we took a break from Daytona Beach and everything else, but everyone's hyped up because they know this is the final spring. This is the final spring break. So what happened was like I tell my boss at the time, I was like, hey, do you mind? I'm feeling kind of sick right now. Can I get a substitute teacher? She goes, fine. You never miss. This is your first year. You're doing great. Good. So what happened was inside my bag, I had $20,000 of fake money in there because I was teaching the kids how to count money.
Yeah.
So at the time, I was like, I'll just put it in my bag real fast because I forgot I had it in there. So my boy from St. Louis looks at it and goes, oh, where's all this money from? I was like, it's fake. It's not real. He takes real money, wraps it around in bands, right? And gives everybody a stack.
I think I know where this is going.
Everybody gets a stack of 5,000, right? And we're just sitting there just flipping, we're just throwing money up in the room and it's fake, so he wraps it up. So first we go to I think it's like a strip club in Panama City, but we went at like 10 o'clock. So these are like the B team strippers. These weren't like the A team and everything else. So next you know, they invite us because my boy's like, what's like a long line? He holds up the stack of money. They go, let these guys in first. So they let us all in because they think we got like 20 bands.
Yeah.
And then he's throwing around there in private rooms and stuff like that. And then this girl turns on the black lights And she noticed that the money's not real, and she starts screaming, "These got counterfeit money, they got fake bills, they've been throwing fake bills and stuff like that." So the bouncers come, they grab my friend by his neck, start tossing him out, and they start grabbing everybody else, they start tossing them out. And then I'm just like, hey, I stopped drinking, I was like, listen, man, you mind if I grab some of this money? This is for my kindergarten class. And he grabs me by my neck like this and starts laughing and pushes me out. He goes, dude, he said, you're lucky we didn't call the police, but this is the hilarious story like this.
So funny.
So they kick us out, and so everybody.
This is for my, hey guys, seriously, this is for my kindergarten class.
He's laughing, and then we go to another club, and my friend, this girl invites him to the bathroom, and he's walking with her, and then another goes, "Get out of the bathroom!" So the bouncer grabs him, he throws. We all get kicked out of the club. It was like 12 of us there, and everyone got kicked off at different times. It's just me, since I'm the sober one. Like, I'm just watching them all get kicked out at different times. They all get kicked out. One dude, he took a bottle and just crashed it together because he was drunk, and then he leaves, and then the bouncer goes, "Hey man, do you mind not taking pictures?" And he goes, "Hey man, good job. Way to do a great job. Way to do your job. You're a really good bouncer. I hope your mom's proud of you." And he gets tossed out.
God.
And he's like, probably he was playing the University of Cincinnati, so he's just seeking ripped and stuff like that. So we got kicked out of every place, and the last place is this place in Panama.
So you're
City.
saying this is throughout the course of the night, you
We
guys
get
just
kicked out of
Okay.
everyone. So we're at the final place. The final place is this, I forgot, in Panama City, but there's a pool at the end, at the bottom of it. You ever been to this club?
No.
There's a giant pool at the end. So there's like 3 levels. And at the bottom level there's a pool. And they got like go-go dancer where the girls are dancing, right?
Okay.
And everyone, they're like, they're still, and I convinced my friend, I was like, "Hey man," I think that's your ex-girlfriend who's a go-go dancer.
Just messing with him?
Yeah. And I was like, "You should pick her up and toss her in the pool."
No.
And he's drunk. He's drunk too. He goes, "That's not my girl." I said, "I just talked to her, man." She said, "That's her. I just talked to her, man. We haven't seen her. We haven't seen her since the Netherlands. You should just pick her up and suplex her in there, right?"
She just happens to be in Panama City now.
And he goes, "Really?" I was like, yeah, because we've been meeting girls all the time.
Yeah.
He walks up and grabs her, and he's like, she's like dancing, laughing, and stuff like that. But he's at a pool, and he picks her up and tosses her in. Right? He tosses.
Did she go from laughing to like screaming at
She was
any
pissed.
point?
She was so pissed. She had all this makeup on, so she
Yeah.
was pissed. So the makeup's there, right? And all the bouncers, they see it, so they jump in and start beating him up. They start beating him up in the water, right?
In the water?
In the water. They beat him up in the water. Then my buddies jump in the water to help him out. Now, I can't swim, so I'm not doing anything. I can't swim at all. I'm just like, "Oh my God." And then I fill in my pockets like freak. And then I feel I have the last $5,000, and I throw it up in the air.
The fake money.
And then it goes into the pool, and all these spring breakers jump into the pool chasing after the money. So they all jump into the money, and then they finally get us out, and they took our pictures. It's like a club where they have all 5 of us taking pictures. It's like, "You're banned for life. Banned for life."
Wow.
And it's banned us for life. And I was like, man, this is the wildest, funnest time. But I realized it was only amped up because we haven't seen each other in a while.
Yeah.
And we realized, like, in the Netherlands, it'd be a regular day. Nobody cared. Nobody gave an F what happened and stuff like that. They don't arrest you. They're just like, "Oh, they're Americans. Just let them go back with their business."
God,
So it was just like,
intense.
so it's like when I get with them, I was like, look, I just stopped. I think it was
Do you
like,
still hang out with them?
like when we ever cross paths, like my boy Romance, he came to New York and we went to like the Statue of Liberty, but we all talk like every day. My boy Sasha, everyone else.
That's
But like
awesome.
we're all from this era where we all remember being Americans in a different country, us partying, doing everything else. Then after that, I got stopped drinking. And it was just like I just didn't like the feeling of just not knowing.
Yeah,
what
because
was
you don't.
going.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah,
drink
I
or-
wasn't really like a big drink. I was like a social partier. But then after that, I was like, look, man, we got kicked out of a club. Like I was choked out and stuff.
This is not fun anymore.
I remember this bouncer tried to super kick me. I think I kid you not. We were at a club in the Netherlands, and my friend was taking pictures because it was our second year of college, so we haven't seen each other. We're taking pictures, and he thought we took a picture of a private room. So he walks up and grabs my friend's camera, and he takes the memory card out the camera and gives it back to him. So my buddy goes, "No, he took my memory card." So he goes back into the room, and they're trying to jump him. So we break into the room, and we all just start brawling, right? And we're like over like a ledge, and this guy super kicks me. Like I don't know why he tried to super kick me. I was a bouncer. And I caught his foot, and I kicked him. Did he just try to super kick me?
Just look him right in the eye. Did you
I
just?
was like, I'm a 2-time wrestling champion. I know exactly what I'm doing. We go to the thing, we go to the ground, we start wrestling. Then I remember my buddy, he walked up with his open hand and he punches him in the mouth.
God.
He like busted his lip. My friend's lip is busted. And then he tries to drive off and he's drunk and he drops, those little humps inside in the parking lot?
Yeah.
He drives forward and his car gets stuck and he can't get his car out. So I tell anybody that lived in like Europe, that Europe phase, there's partiers. And Dutch people just like to party because everything is legal.
Yeah.
So they don't care about what's going on.
Dude.
You could literally see someone doing something and they're like, oh, whatever, everything. Who cares? This is the Netherlands.
This was awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
This was a lot of fun. Promote everything one more time.
All right. My name is Jared Waters. If you're on Instagram, it's Mr. Waters. If you're on social, oh yeah, I said that. If you're in Astoria Park every Wednesday at 7 p.m. in Astoria Park, if it's not raining, we're in the park. We got cupcakes, tamales, popcorn right next to Astoria
Cupcakes?
Pool. Yep, my lady makes cupcakes, tamales. It's a whole Southern show, the whole park show. First and third Sundays, Sunday service. And if you're on, if you like podcasts about self-reflection, it's One Man, One Tree in the Hill. It's a podcast. We already said what it was, but yeah, come on the podcast. It's fun.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Brennan T. Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. Shows coming up around New York. Check out the website. Also, check out the merch, Brennan Tassif on Patreon, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
C'est bon.